On the 7th day of throws tips my throws coach gave to me. Progressions, progressing. Okay, so today we are going to talk about progressions. Guys, hopefully you're really enjoying my lyrical skills. The one thing we're going to talk about in today's tip is understanding progressions. Now, when we train athletes, we get athletes that will fly in from all over the country pretty much on a weekly basis throughout the year, and they set up training. We also have an accelerator camp, and the one thing that we do with all of our events that are more in person, we assess the thrower. And the first thing that we're usually going to take a look at is their progression. And do they utilize a progression, and what type of progression is it? Progression is a really simple thing. This is nothing we thought about. One of the things we talk about with the throwing chain reaction system is we take the science, the PhD proven information on that's what our 6 pillars center around, and we are simply spinning the wheel a little differently. We're not reinventing the wheel, we're spinning the wheel differently, and we can prove with over a decade of fast results every year like clockwork. And so one of the things that we do is we always focus on progression. Now, we have 20 different drills. We could literally create a 20-step progression if we wanted. Now, would we ever do that? No, that it would be information overload, and it would probably be, it's just way too much. But what we do with those 20 things is because we always have different tools to apply to different problems. And so sometimes we have a drill, and sometimes some of our coaches that use the system, they kind of have their default that they go to in the toolbox. But this is why we have basically 3 levels of throwing drills and 3 levels of our pillar position drills. So this is what you heard in the second tip, the 2 types of throwing drills, and we have our performance enhancing drills, our PEDs, and we focus on throwing, so focus on sequence and timing, motion, and then we focus on isolated positions. So when we build a progression, typically we're talking about our throwing progression, and a standard progression would be a stand throw, a half turn, maybe a South African, and then a full throw. So that would be a 3-step or 4-step progression based on how you look at it, if you conclude the 4th throw as the 4th piece. So you have multiple steps in the progression. Now, the idea here is one of the previous tips when we talked about the 6 pillars connecting, and now we have our 7 progressions progressing. We are looking at, we want to understand that, again, the throw happens fast and it's unnatural. We talked about that in our 5th tip, our 5 throwing rules. So when things happen quickly, you don't have time to think, and so this is why we work on a progression. A stand throw, what are we going to work on? Our block arm, block leg, and delivery arm. So the deal is we have all of that going. Delivery leg, block, deliver. It's a really timed sequence, and this is where sometimes you can sequence it right but time it wrong. And this again is one of those things why we talk about be careful that sometimes you're on track but your timing's off but your sequence is right. That's an important thing. We'll talk about that in another tip. But as we go through the progression, everything's happening super fast. So if we're just trying to work on the finish, we can concentrate on that because all we're doing is taking that 2 seconds, we're isolating it down into a smaller segment, and then we're putting it all together. We're going to set up alignment, we're going to set up our chain reaction, and then we're going to train the finish. Then what we're going to do in our progression, we have something called a walking line, which is in addition to a half turn. The walking line throw is a classic drill that teaches you how to create rotation on a linear path, where you're learning how the sprint leg helps facilitate the rotation of the delivery side and the sweep leg. So we'll teach you how to be linear with certain parts of the body and rotational with other parts of the body. We look at the drills, right, as we have lower body, upper body, left and right. So we kind of have this throwing quadrant of how we have to control our body. And this is what a progression will afford you. So remember, if you're falling into the trap of just going out, hitting a stand throw and going to a full throw, or doing maybe a unfortunately inefficient half turn where your alignment's off and your initiation of the sequence is wrong, remember you're going to be getting limited results. And a lot of times we see athletes who are struggling with half turns because they're simply not setting up right and they don't have them mechanically. They don't mechanically understand it. So that's what a progression is. And so we always encourage every thrower and coach to understand how to add progressions. Sometimes we're going to have longer progressions. Some days we're going to have short progressions. We have meet setup progressions, right? Where we want to get ready for competition. And what are we going to do? We don't have time for a long thing. We're going to get in, get the hand, maybe a half turn turn, and we're gonna go to fulls. And depending on where it is, you might only get 4 throws, so we might just have a couple of stand throws on the side to get yourself ready, maybe 1 or 2 in the ring, and go right to fulls. So you can have short progressions, and depending on your focus on the day will determine your progression. So remember, you want to have progressions that are always helping you progress, right? So that's what we mean by progressions progressing. And so you can add more detailed progressions where you're working on more pieces of the throw, and you're always working on connecting your technical positions and working on the proper sequence and learning how to time that. That's what your throwing drills do. And then you can have, again, shorter days where it's just get yourself warmed up, and even just going sometimes no progression where you go straight to a full. We'll get to a time of the year where we're usually going to train our athletes on that, but a lot of times we're going to do 4 and 5 steps progressions pretty regularly, because we're going to work on certain things on the beginning of the throw, the middle of the throw, and at the start of the throw. So obviously we look at pillar 5-6, connecting pillar 3-4 and 2-5-6, and then working on the start pillar 1 and 2 and connecting that to 3-4-5-6. So when you look at that, that's how you train something that happens fast, is unnatural, and that's the value of a progression. And if you're not doing an extensive progression or don't know, be sure to check out our TCR method. Again, that's going to include the throwing chain reaction system, all of our level 1 drills. You're going to get handouts, printouts, you're going to get weekly assignments, practice plans, everything you do, and most importantly, live training every single week where you connect live, go through drills, learn. We are putting you through the paces and guiding you directly on what you're going to do and what tools you're going to use throughout the week. So check that information below. Hopefully you enjoyed today's tip, and I'll see you on the next tip. Take care.